Okay, so let's just be honest for a second. Have you ever had that experience?
Oh, I think I know where this is going.
You've had this magnificent, huge meal.
Hmm.
I'm talking like mountains of pasta, maybe a whole pizza, couple glasses of wine. You are absolutely
The
stuffed.
point of no return.
Exactly.
Mm.
And then the waiter comes by with the dessert tray, and someone, maybe it's you, leans in and kind of whispers, well, we can't let it all go to waste. We should probably sample everything.
The classic move, the justification for what is basically a nutritional felony.
It really is. I remember this one time after committing that exact crime, I went home, collapsed into bed, and all I could hear on the pillow was boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
My own heartbeat just pounding in my ear.
Wow.
And I had the genuine thought, I think I just ate myself into a heart flutter.
Well, what's so fascinating is that it wasn't just a food coma. You were basically accelerating a lifelong, really destructive experiment that millions of us are running on ourselves every single day.
Completely unknowingly.
Totally. You were just burning through a critical resource you needed to handle that spike.
The secret experiment on your brain, fueled by a dessert tray. And that is exactly what we're diving into today. This surprisingly sinister relationship between high carbs, and that means sugar and starches, and one single critical nutrient, vitamin B1,
Thiamine.
thiamine.
And we really have to stress this. This is not just about feeling a little tired.
No.
The depletion of B1 leads to this massive, confusing, just contradictory list of symptoms. People spend years, going to doctors thinking they have chronic fatigue or anxiety.
Or some weird neurological issue.
Exactly. Connecting it to everything but a simple vitamin deficiency.
So let's set the scene for this experiment. Right. Just look at the modern plate. The average diet today is what, 50, 60?
Sometimes 70% refined carbs and hidden sugars.
Yeah, that's the environment.
Yeah.
That is the setting where your B1 reserves just go to die.
Because B1's main job is to help process all that fuel, to turn it into energy. But when you just flood the system constantly with sugar and starch, the B1 gets used up so fast. It's like trying to run a marathon with just one tiny bottle of water.
You burn out fast, and your body tries to cope.
Yeah.
For years, I just keep eating all the processed stuff, breads, sugars, and I developed this terrible insomnia. And my brilliant solution,
Oh, this is going to be good.
a nightly self-induced sugar coma.
Of course. The cure is always worse than the disease.
Totally. A full pint of Ben & Jerry's every single night, just to knock myself out. And it worked for a while. But I would wake up with these puffy eyelids, like actual fluid retention.
Which is a classic B1 deficiency symptom. It's called wet beriberi.
Right. And even worse, all that sugar, without enough B1 to process it, it just creates this buildup of metabolic waste.
Lactic acid specifically. B1 is the key that lets the energy cycle move forward. When you don't have it, the whole thing stalls, and you get this rush of waste that irritates the nervous system.
And that irritation, for me, showed up as restless leg syndrome. That awful, creepy, crawly feeling when you're trying to relax. It's the B1 vacuum creating, like, toxic sludge in your system.
The symptoms really are like a neurological bingo card. It's the sheer variety that's so confusing. You see nervous tension, irritability, restlessness, and of course the modern classic, brain fog.
But then you get the really weird physical stuff, like air hunger, where you feel like you can't quite get a deep breath.
Numbness or tingling in your feet, your fingertips, hand tremors, confusion.
And this one is so strange. Pulse rate instability. Your pulse will be like perfectly low when you're sitting down.
But you stand up to walk to the bathroom and it just skyrockets.
Way too high.
And if you look at people with a really low tolerance for stress or people struggling with alcoholism, B1 deficiency is just rampant. Alcohol depletes B1 even faster than sugar does.
That explains so much of the neurological damage you see.
It's a huge driver.
I mean, we're talking about full-blown personality changes, loss of manual dexterity, headaches, constipation.
Right.
Other than feeling like you're falling apart piece by piece, you'll be fine.
Right, totally fine.
But it was the personal stuff that got me. My eyelids felt like sandpaper. They were always bloodshot. I was convinced it was allergies. But no, it was a pre-diabetic state, all linked to a missing vitamin.
So B1, what's its job description? Why does it matter so much?
Yeah, what is it actually doing in the engine room?
So B1 is it's basically the essential ignition key for making energy. Its most critical job is right at the entrance to the Krebs cycle, where we turn fuel into energy in the mitochondria. So
Got
you eat carbs, they become glucose, and then that gets converted into something called pyruvate.
Pyruvate, got it.
B1 is mandatory to turn that pyruvate into acetyl-CoA, which is the molecule that actually gets into the energy cycle. If you don't have enough B1 because you just ate that dessert tray,
Right.
that pyruvate just backs up. It can't get in.
And so it piles up, and the body, desperate, turns the extra into lactic acid, which explains the restless legs and all that neurological static.
Precisely. The whole machine is stalling out.
Yeah.
And the sugar itself, it's not just fuel anymore. If the B1 machinery is empty, the sugar becomes this destructive, toxic thing.
Which brings us to this really sticky problem. Advanced glycation end products, or AGs. That just sounds terrifying.
It should. When your blood sugar is high all the time, the sugar molecules literally start sticking to proteins. It's like pouring super glue all over your insides. It makes your protein sticky and, well, useless.
So it's not just an analogy. You're literally pouring molasses into the engine.
Absolutely. The proteins can't function. And here's the kicker. A special form of B1, benfotiamine, is really helpful for diabetics because it helps detoxify the things that lead to these sticky AGEs.
It's an anti-glycation agent.
It is, and this whole energy failure, especially in the brain, is a key part of what's behind conditions like Alzheimer's. The brain is literally starving for energy, even when there's plenty of sugar in the blood.
That's a huge insight. So if B1 is the ignition key, does it need any, oil to run?
It does. It needs magnesium. B1 doesn't work alone. It needs a coenzyme. And magnesium is the big one. If you're low in magnesium, and most people are, your B1 is already working at half capacity.
Which makes the whole high-carb experiment doubly damaging.
Exactly.
Okay, so here's where we get to the infuriating part. You hear it all the time. Oh, I eat junk food, but it's fine. It's enriched with B vitamins. It sounds like a cheap trick, and it is.
It is the great myth of enrichment. Because the B vitamins they use, the cheap stuff, is almost always the wrong kind.
So what's the dirt cheap stuff?
That would be thiamine mononitrate. It is incredibly cheap. A whole kilogram of it might cost $30. If you see a bottle of B1 for $5 or $6, you know the plastic bottle was the most expensive part.
So what's the fatal flaw with this cheap synthetic B1?
It's water-soluble. And water-soluble vitamins need something called active transport to be absorbed. They need special carriers in your gut.
And that process can get overloaded.
It saturates really, really fast. You can only absorb a tiny bit no matter how much you take. And if your gut health is already a mess from a high-carb diet,
which it probably is,
then you absorb practically none of it. You're just making very expensive urine.
That is a disaster of biochemistry. So, okay, who's the hero then? What's the good stuff?
The hero is allithiamine, or a form like benfotiamine. This is the natural fat-soluble version, and that is the game changer.
Why fat-soluble?
Because it doesn't need that clunky active transport system. It can just slip right through cell membranes, even in small doses.
Yeah.
And crucially, it can cross the blood-brain barrier.
Which is huge for the neurological symptoms.
It's everything. If you're trying to fix brain fog, tremors, those personality changes, you need a form that can actually get to the brain.
So if you're trying to fix this deficiency with the cheap stuff while still eating a high-carb diet, your chances are basically zero.
You're just running the same failed experiment over and over again.
Okay, so let's talk about fixing the machine. What are the actual practical adjustments?
The first step is the obvious one. You have to lower the demand.
Cut the refined carbs and sugars. Stop the constant B1 hemorrhage.
Exactly. And then you have to actively replenish your stores.
A lot of people find their way to low-carb or ketogenic diets when they learn about this.
And that can bring immediate relief, for sure. The keto diet gives your body a different fuel ketones from fat that pretty much bypasses that B1 roadblock, so you feel better fast. But, and this is a big but, if you've been deficient for years, just lowering the demand doesn't fix the deficit.
You still have to put the B1 back in.
You absolutely must increase your B1 intake to heal the damage.
So speaking of intake, where do we find B1 in food? And spoiler alert, it's not always in the glamorous places.
No, it requires some intention. Pork is actually one of the richest sources. After that, you're looking at things like beef, organ meats, eggs, fish, and some nuts.
Unfortified nutritional yeast, too.
Yep, that's a good one.
But the irony here is pretty thick, isn't it?
It is. Vegetables have B1, but they also have anti-nutrients like oxalates that can interfere with it. And a lot of high-fat staples like dairy are actually pretty low in B1.
So even if you're on a high-fat diet, You have to deliberately target those B1-rich foods. You can't just assume.
You can't. You have to be aware of the whole picture, especially when you're deeply depleted.
So to wrap this all up, a B1 deficiency, mostly driven by a high-carb lifestyle, creates this cascade of nervous system failure, energy failure, and a long, confusing list of health problems.
It really is a cascade.
But by understanding this simple dynamic, this B1 sugar connection, you can start connecting those seemingly random dots, the headaches, the restlessness, the anxiety, to one manageable and thankfully fixable issue.
Which, it brings us right back to the beginning. If just sampling one dessert tray could kick off all that chaos,
Yeah.
it makes you wonder, what seemingly harmless experiment are you running on yourself right now? That daily sweet coffee, that extra piece of bread that you think is fine, but is slowly, quietly starving your nervous system. Something to think about.